You know, the reason we're up here today dropping the banner off the lighthouse is this is Byron Bay. It's sort of like the most easterly point of Australia, and it's an icon of Australia. And you know, the statement we're trying to make today is that Australia should stand on its own 2 feet. 94% of the population of Australia does not want a war. You know, it doesn't want to support America in a preemptive strike on Iraq.
I can't believe I'm returning to Iraq. Last time I was here, 12 years ago, I was retreating along this road from Baghdad, which was being bombed. I remember hiding out in a shelter while bombs rained down outside and Scud missiles headed for Jerusalem.
Together we'll have victory, hand in hand.
In 1991, I was part of an international peace team of 90 activists that had camped here in this pilgrim shelter near the Saudi Arabian border.
Hand in hand.
In the first official reaction from Baghdad, Iraqi radio said the Americans and their allies had been taught a lesson.
We spent 4 weeks in the desert, positioning ourselves as a human buffer between the Iraqi and Allied forces to try and stop the war.
President Bush, speaking to the American nation, said ground forces were not involved. He said the aim of the air attacks...
You know, truth is always the first casualty in war, and really nobody knows it.
Neville Watson, a Uniting Church minister from Perth, was with me in the 1991 Gulf Peace Camp. We were often woken in the middle of the night by the roar of coalition bombers flying overhead on their way to bomb Baghdad.
Well, last night was the most afraid I've ever been, to actually hear the planes and hear the bombs and hear the reports that people are dying. Then the reality really hit that, well, you know, here we are in the middle of 2 armies, and yeah, I was starting to feel it. I really was.
There it goes. As the war escalated, the Iraqi army wanted us out of the peace camp and evacuated us.
Afraid to gain.
Now, 12 years later, I'm back in Iraq with a new international peace team. Once again, war is in the air. I joined these peace activists here in Baghdad to add my support to the growing global opposition to the war. Neville Watson is also back, as is Kathy Kelly, another veteran from the 1991 peace camp.
Can be stopped, and you can just taste the possibility of stopping this war, but you know.
One of our first moves was to demonstrate outside the UN office in Baghdad.
Today's protest out in front of the United Nations by the Iraq peace team is actually about supporting the UN process now, and already we're seeing a lot of pressure mounted by the United States to discredit that whole process.
Another reminder of the cost of war was here on the locally known Highway of Death. This is where the Iraqi military were attacked as they were retreating from Kuwait during the Gulf War. Iraqi officials told us that some of the coalition fighter planes that blasted the convoy fired shells that contained depleted uranium.
Here's an example of the type of thing that was thrown about during the war, and it's not just small quantities. 35 tons of depleted uranium was spread around this area during the war.
We've been told not to touch anything here, and I'm glad it's not a windy day, so there's no dust, but I'd say if you walked around here with a Geiger counter, it would go crazy.
Depleted uranium is a byproduct of nuclear fission. It's still got uranium-235 in it. When it impacts, 40% of it is vaporized. Carcinogenic particles then go into the dust and into the air and into the water table.
We visited Basra Hospital to check out what impact any radiation might have had on the local people's health. This girl had just been admitted.
She's suffering from leukemia. Leukemia means the cancer of blood. And the main cause of leukemia here, and the cause of increasing cases of leukemias in this country in these years, the effect of depleted uranium. Yes.
The doctors told us that because of the UN sanctions, they lack a consistent supply of cancer-fighting drugs. They can do little more than provide blood transfusions and wait for these tiny children's lives to end. This young girl is in the final stages of leukemia.
It's a miserable case. We didn't see these cases before the war, before bombing. But after the war, there are many cases of leukemias.
50,000 children under the age of 5 were dying unnecessarily each year in Iraq.
Now, what crimes did those children commit? And why should their deaths be utterly neglected by the world community while we fixate, almost as though it's an obsessive-compulsive disorder, on whether or not Iraq could pose a threat to any of its neighboring states, which have been loaded up with weapons, many of them from the United States, or whether or not Iraq might pose a threat to U.S. ability to control Iraq's oil.
Like the Sheikh of Fallujah asked George Bush, I would ask John Howard, tell the truth. And when the truth is told, then we can respond to a reality, not to a myth. So we need to respond to a reality, and that is that the presence of the troops is causing terrible violence and pain for the Iraqi people. And the Australian troop contingent could well be a token contingent, but all the more reason to pull it out as a symbolic act. This footage shows US soldiers from a helicopter shooting at civilians, and we know they're civilians because they're wearing traditional dishdasha, which is traditional clothing. They're not holding any weapons. You can see their hands are empty. There is a tractor. They are farmers. This footage contains several breaches of the Geneva Convention, but it's also just disgraceful. So, but this is the reality, so this is why we share this.
Park 4, I think you